Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in and welcome to our webinar. My name is Michaela and I work as a program manager here at Localize. My colleague Brittany and I will be moderating the session and supporting Eric, our fantastic host, for today's session. Before handing over to Eric, I would like to remind you that the session will last for approximately 45 minutes, and we will have some time also for dedicated Q&A. So if you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to post them in the Q&A box of your Zoom panel. And we will also be sharing the recording with you soon, together with some additional documentation, so you can review any part of our webinar if you would like to. While we wait for all the attendees to join, I would like to invite you to type in the comment box, where are you dialing in from today? Let's see. Paris, nice. I'm based in Amsterdam, we are close by. Texas, Munich, Berlin, Stockholm, Switzerland, Paris as well. Someone from Boston, oh, Kosovo, Germany, Spain, Antwerp. Hello, for someone else from Amsterdam. Nice. Welcome all. Egypt, Denmark, Latvia. Another small town in the northern part of the Netherlands. Nice. The UK. Moon. Someone from the moon. Nice. Super cool. Welcome all. Now, without any further ado, let's kickstart. So, Eric, the floor is all yours. Please share how we can simplify the localization workflow, automating with Localize and local solutions.
All right, let's get started. And thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm really excited to present on this topic. It's something I actually do quite frequently as proof of concepts for customers and for automating my own processes as a sales engineer for administrative tasks within Localize, like automating, requesting my services for post-sales or pre-sale support, and attaching me to deals within Salesforce. I do all of that using no or low-code workflow builders. So thank you for joining me today. It's a topic I'm passionate about. Without further ado, let's get into it. Brittany, Michaela, you'll have to remind me while we're asking the questions to the audience. I've already forgotten all the excitement. So interrupt me and pause. And please, to all the audience, put your questions in the chat at all times. We have our moderators who will ask them at the appropriate times, and we'll save them for the end of the webinar, which will last between 45 and 60 minutes. Now, not on the agenda is my own personal introduction, so let's start there. My name is Eric Silverstein. I'm the US Senior Sales Engineer here at Localize, and I have the privilege of supporting prospective users and evaluating our tool, and also supporting current users to optimize how they use Localize. I have some fantastic colleagues that are product experts. So where my knowledge is useful is beyond the product in localization and automating with our API and webhooks. So that's where we'll start our conversation today. Many of us already know what webhooks and APIs are, but since it's the foundation of any automated workflow or custom connector or an app, we'll quickly review and jog our memories about these two terms. After that, I'm going to show you an automated flow that I built just to get you thinking creatively about all of the opportunities you have to automate within your workflows, whether it's for localization purposes or other tasks you have daily, spreadsheet, accumulation, anything that's done in a repetitive way that can be automated, you can do so easier than you think you can. And at the very end of the call, we're going to actually do some live workflow building, kind of like a pair coding session. And there's two flows we're going to build live. I'm going to start very easy with sending files uploaded to a Google Drive folder to Localize. And then we're going to build a translation memory leverage dashboard in Notion, taking the leverage data from Localize. So
Eric,
webhooks.
I will pause you really quickly and we'll launch the poll and then we can get into the rest after the agenda. Is that okay?
Perfect. Let's do it. Thanks for interrupting.
Of course. Okay, yep, there's just a quick short answer poll. So if you guys can just enter that in, what integrations or workflows do you use daily that have kind of saved your life or that you rely on heavily to do your job well? They don't have to be localization related. It could be anything that you've integrated that's kind of saving your day-to-day life. And this is really just to share with everybody so that we can share the results later and people can learn from the integrations that you use that they might not know about. We will give it 30 more seconds.
I'm going to guess we'll see a lot of communication tools and project management tools. So Jira, Asana, Monday, Slack, Teams. I'm not a Microsoft Teams guy. I used to use Teams. I prefer Slack way more now. Maybe G Sheets because you can edit them live together. We'll see what the audience says.
And I'm at Lockworld this week, and yesterday I was learning about so many different integrations that people are using for localization that I had no idea actually existed myself. People are really creative with how they can use Google Sheets and things like that. So I'm excited to see the results. Okay, let's give it 3 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Okay, we will end it now. Oh, there's still people flying in with responses. I'll give it 2 more seconds because. All right, let's stop it now.
We'll be going over the answers now. Let's see.
Yes, everyone should be able to see them. Can you or no? Oh, you can just see how many people view. Okay, yep. I will share the answers actually on the follow-up email with everyone. I'll share a Google Sheet that shows you all the different integrations that people mentioned.
And I'd like to hear them live too, Brittany. If they're available when we get to Q&A, that would be great.
Here, I have some here actually now. Slack, Google Drive, XTRF, Figma, and Jira, automations of localizations together with tags and unverified stuff, Figma integration, API integrations between Localize and CMSs like Storyblock, the localized Slack integration for query management, Slack.
That's a good one. Super easy to use too.
Yeah. Jira to spreadsheet, GPTs, and Zapier with email. I use Zapier for a lot of cross-platform automation, Notion databases, and automation for managing personal projects, Jira for company projects, etc. Teams, Premiere Pro, easy.
Just about anything that's API accessible, right, can be connected with other tools. And it's cool. We heard someone mention Zapier for using LLMs to work with emails, maybe writing emails or categorizing them on importance. Who knows? You could do anything really.
Yep, there's a lot in here.
Sharing
a lot of Jira integrations I'm seeing actually.
That's great because we're going to be creating one today. But to create one, we have to understand what events can take place in Jira, what events can take place in Localize that can trigger a workflow, or how can we schedule them? So that's our transition to webhooks. So the way we can listen to applications, they send a bundle of data anytime an event takes place within it. Now in Localize, very popular webhooks are like task has been created, or a file has been uploaded, or a task has been closed. So with Jira, for example, they have a lot of webhooks for an issue has been created or an issue has been transitioned. API is similar to webhooks. It's a service that provides a bundle of data, but unlike webhooks, it's never triggered automatically based on an event taking place. Instead, we have to make a call programmatically to interact with the tool. We can extract data, manipulate data, take the data and share it across tools, which is exactly what we'll be doing today. And there are 5 different API calls or methods that we'll use. So when you have a question, can I automate this workflow? Can I interact with this tool? First, we have to understand what API calls does that tool support and which objects can be manipulated with these calls. So can we get the data by API? Can we post or create, say, a new task in Localize or a new key in Localize by API? Can we replace data? Can we remove data? And those are the calls we're going to be working with today. Some very popular webhooks and API objects used in the Localize are here in front of you. But most importantly, I wanted to use this slide to direct your attention to our developer hub, where you can play with the APIs, see what data is returned when you make a get call you list all keys, you fetch a specific translation, or you create a task. You can also get our guides on webhooks to understand exactly what data will be delivered to you when the webhook is triggered. And that is an extremely simple page to use and find, just developers.localize.com. You scroll down, you can see all of the objects you can manipulate programmatically by Zapier, Blackbird, make.com, or your own custom script launched directly from Google Sheets or from your own console. And our most popular ones are those we saw here. So without further ado, we can review what webhooks and APIs are, and then we'll get into the fun part, using these low or no code solutions to act on our ideas, our desires, our ideal states and workflows. So webhook is listening for events that are triggered within a tool. So files uploaded to Lokalise, and if we set up the webhook app, every time that event takes place, it will send a bundle of data with information about that event to a URL. And then we can take that data and run with it. API isn't triggered automatically. We have to make calls. We can make calls to get data, replace data, update data, create data, and delete data. And we're going to be showcasing, mostly today, for me, I'll be using make.com, but Zapier has built-in modules for Lokalise, and Blackbird is a very flexible and built-out solution for interacting with Lokalise. I spoke with Blackbird CEO before the webinar because we wanted to do this as actually a pair coding session. He brought up some of Blackbird's strengths. One thing I really like about Blackbird is it's specific to the localization industry and language ops. And so they have very specific pre-built workflows and ideas. So it's not just an API wrapper enabling you to use Lokalise's endpoints, but they've built in more features. They say their greatest strength is for content exchange and connecting your TMS tools and language ops tools with another content management system. So check Blackbird out. And today we're going to be looking at make.com.
Eric, are we ready for the second poll?
Let's do it. This is the one poll I could remember. It's on this screen.
Yes. All right, everyone. This question is, which tools have you always wanted to connect with Lokalise but haven't been able to? And if you don't use Lokalise, you can just use any TMS vendor that you're already using as your example here. What tools would you like to connect with your existing TMS that you're using but haven't been able to? And if you're not using TMS, just think, what tools would you want to connect with your spreadsheet or however you're managing your localization workflow right now? And we will give it 30 more seconds, and then I will stop the poll.
I wonder if anyone will mention Claude, because Localize AI is built on top of OpenAI's LLMs. But Claude has been making serious gains on OpenAI's best models. So who here's wanted to connect maybe their own custom MT engine to Localize for their own custom workflow? Because it is absolutely possible. And I've done it using a no or low code solution. Will we see Claude? Will we see my own license for OpenAI? What is there, Brittany?
Okay, I'm pulling up the results now. All right, we've got Airtable. Someone says it already connects to Git, but it doesn't do as much as I want. Also, Ops Jenny would be nice. Never heard of that one. On-premise Azure, DevOps, TFS, DeepL Pro, ChatGPT, Salesforce Communities, Google Drive for PowerPoint and Docs, Google Docs for file uploading and downloading. Someone Figma, but the key enter Figma layers automatically, maybe from Jira or in a sheet in Google Drive, Ricardo, Beamer, Google Docs, App Queues, Mayday, Contentful, Notion, make.com. I wish someone wishes their company could afford Blackbird, SendGrid, Contentful, Upwork.
So we saw content management systems, maybe data visualization tools, Airtable, Notion, or data management tools, amongst others. Okay, very cool. And if those tools have endpoints that you need to get information, manipulate data information with, and Localize has a corresponding one for creating keys, tasks, uploading files, then it's possible. We just got to find out how to do it. I added this one in for Zapier. So in Zapier, there are some pre-built workflows you can use with Dropbox, Trello, Microsoft Teams. So if you do get a Zapier trial, totally free, get into those. But most interesting is, what are we going to do today and how will we start? So we're 15 minutes in. This is where I think I need to slow my roll and go through workflow step by step, show how I used make.com to accomplish just this. So the first workflow I wanted to show you today is submitting an issue via form in Jira, getting all the attachments from that form, sending them to Localize, and automatically generating a task in Localize, translating the keys linked to that file that came from the Jira form. And this automation needs to notify us if the upload was successful or unsuccessful. So that's the first workflow I'm going to take you through. But the three workflows, or the three cards you see in front of you, they're all interconnected, because we start with Jira, then we create the task in Localize. And the third part is, when creating a task in Localize, we want to get insights about that task. We want to create a task dashboard in Notion. So all of our stakeholders don't have a license, or don't want to open Localize, have a centralized location where they can check on the status and progress of the workflows. So in a way, we'll be building a very simple translation, submission, or request portal, and another dashboard where all of the requesters can check on the status of their translations. And we're going to go workflow by workflow. So this is where things are going to get kind of messy. So we're going to click back and forth between documentation. It's where I'm going to open my make.com workflows. And I got so many tabs open. It's kind of like Russian roulette. I don't know if I'll get the right or wrong one with every click. But let's get started. So if our first task, or the first part of our workflow, is a form is submitted in Jira with an attachment, and we need to send it to Localize, what might that look like? So in make.com, it would look a lot like this. We'll start with Jira, and what I'm doing is I'm scheduling an action, so I can run it every 15 minutes or at a custom interval. And I'm looking for new issues within my Jira project. When a new issue is identified, I'll get the issue. And that issue will give me a lot of data about what's in it. So I need to know if it has attachments, what's the file name. I need to know who submitted it, what's the key ID for that issue, and other important data that I can't get from watching issues, but I can get from getting the issue after I've found it. Then I'm going to set multiple variables. So I'm setting my document type project ID, which is the only one we'll be working with today for later use. So this is within Localize. And in this workflow, I'm only going to be working with document type projects. For the Localize users, you know that a doc type project supports docx, pptx, IDML, and HTML. And software type project supports a different suite of file types. So after getting that issue in the attachment, for each attachment, I'm going to download and upload it to Localize. So I'm downloading it to the service, uploading the file to Localize. And if that upload is successful, I'll make a comment on the issue and say the upload was successful. And I tried tagging the requester, but I couldn't get the syntax right. It didn't work for me. I know it's possible. I just didn't want to spend all my time on it. But if you find out how to do that, please send me an email, let me know. I'll also use filters and routers on the way. So for example, if the bundle arrives to this point and the file name is equal to one of these four, which are accepted by Localize document project types, then I can upload it to Localize. If not, this is kind of like my error handler. If the file type is not supported, I'm going to add an issue comment. I'm going to say, hey, error, file type you uploaded is not supported. Try again. Or perhaps submit in a different portal and customize the message. So we're seeing a couple of important options and features within known local builders. First is we can schedule for workflow to run, and we can leave it on that schedule running in the background at all times. We'll also make a GET request to get information about a Jira ticket. Then we'll use a built-in tool called an iterator. So for an array within the data that's returned to us, we'll run the workflow for each bundle. And that is, we're looking at the amount of attachments. And for each attachment, we'll go through the rest of the workflow. Download it, upload it, and the rest. The other tool I'm using is a router. So here we can do if or and or. We can't do loops, but we can decide where to send content based on criteria or parameters that content data means. Document type projects go up, unsupported file types in this project go down. So let's get started. If I go and I submit a Jira form with an attachment, I can now run the workflow. But because so much is going to happen when I submit, I rehearse this beforehand. To get everything right, I have to start the other workflows at the same time. We'll go through these workflows step by step, so you can build a similar one out. I'm also going to share these blueprints with you, so you can look at what I did, take my ideas, maybe just reuse the workflow as it is. So I'm going to turn these webhooks on for Notion and creating the task automatically. All right, so we have a new issue within Jira. When I hit run once, we're going to get the issue, create a localized task, and update our task dashboard within Notion. It's found the new issue. It's got the issue. There's one attachment. It's uploaded the file. We see that task is this one, and we've just sent data to Notion. So I open my localized project to show you that it was successful. And we've got our new task, ELP11 privacy review questionnaire, translating into Spanish. And I go into Notion, and there it is. We have the task dashboard progress. So I've also built out, this is an inline database. For another customer, I was building out a proof of concept for a language dashboard for each language. We're just going to work with the general task dashboard today. So there you saw it. User submitted a request, and we got all of those workflows to run automatically. This can be run at a schedule, and then we'll use our webhooks. Now let's look at one of these workflows to understand how we can use webhooks and what we did. And since this one's more complex, I think it's worth looking into this one first. So Make has a really cool feature where we can hit, where is it? Localize, automate. I don't want to do that. Let me refresh this page. Something's not appearing that I'd like to see. There we go. Okay, I'll go into the diagram, and there's like an explanation, previous version, save, explain flow. So data from the webhook arrives. We then search for an issue within the Jira board that has some sort of corresponding data to that file upload, and that is the file name. And then for each issue, we're going to get each attachment. And if that attachment is equal to the imported file name that now lives in Localize, then we're going to get the keys, create an array and assign it to a variable, and then use that array of keys to create a task. And it sounds somewhat complicated, but really it's not. So we'll look in. Setting a webhook is extremely easy. You go to add a module, find a webhook, set up a custom webhook, and then you take this URL, and within your localized project, we'll go to apps, installed apps, webhooks, manage, and we'll set up the webhooks within our tool. So here's the URL, and here's the events that I'm going to be using to send data to that location, which is in make.com. So my webhook is listening for any time a file is uploaded, which happens in the workflow we started with, the Jira upload. When the file is uploaded, we're going to look at the Eric's localized proof of concept project in Jira, and we're going to get all of the issues that are still in the to-do part of our board. So I should show you the board before I go any further. What's the fastest way to get to it? One moment, I might need to take this off. I bet this is the best way to do it. No, I bet this is it. There's my board. So it's looking for any issues that are still in this to-do category. Why are they in the to-do category? Well, as part of my second automation, once I've started the task, that's the moment that that translation request is in progress. So we can assume then that within this part of our board is all the content that hasn't yet had a localized task created. And when the task is created, we transition it to in progress. So I'm searching for the issues. And then I'm getting the issues that appear here. So this will return a bundle of data. Watch this. So I can hit run this module only. And currently we have no issues within the to-do part. But what if I were to change this just to give you more information? Let's put it in progress. Give you an idea of how easy it is to work with this tool. Now I'm going to run the module. And here are all those bundles. So each bundle is its own issue within Jira. And the bundle data includes the issue ID and the key. Most important for our purposes and for workflow purposes, we can get the project it's from in case that's important for how we route which localized project it goes to. But we're really interested in the properties, issue types, progress reporter, note, description, priority. Why can't I find it? Labels, no, components. Well, it should be here. Priority, version, status, creator, accurate process, custom fields. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time. But there should be, and there is later. Oh, it's because I'm not getting the issue. And this is what happens when you play with these tools. So after I get that bundle, I'm getting the issue here. And when I get the issue with this module, I think we have one called ELPP-8. So let me get that issue. Okay, it doesn't exist. I must have gotten it wrong. That's where we get the data that we pass into the future modules. So we iterate for each attachment. We make a key to localize this custom API call. All I need is the project ID and the URL, and all this information is given to you within our documentation. So for like listing all keys, getting an object, there's that URL you need. And once you put in your API header authentication and project ID, well, Lokalise generates the URL for you. So if you're worried, oh, I don't know how to write code, I don't know what the URL endpoint is, then our documentation will make it so easy to get set up with any coding process or project you have. So I'm using that very URL, filters and parameters to find the keys that are connected to that file name, assigning all of those keys to a variable, so creating a variable with a value that is an array, and then using that array to create a task. And updating the issue, I'm transitioning it from to do to in progress because the task was successfully created. Because of time, we could go into the Notion one, but you can see here it's actually very simple. What I like about the simplicity is after the router, well, I just choose how to update the Notion page. So within Notion, entries are actually called pages. I don't know why, it's just how they did things. And if the task is created, we make one type of update. If it's queued, we make another update. And if it's closed, we make a different type of update. The only difference between these three is I'm just changing the status. And you can see here, I'm getting for each field information from the task that I fetched from Lokalise. It really is a process of finding and clicking. So what's the word count for my task? Well, after I fetch the task, my word count is right there. I enter it and I hit enter, and all of a sudden my workflow is running. We're going to build two today together. So hope that helps you to think, what could I accomplish? What are my ideal flows? And is there a pathway to get there? Look into documentation. Which API endpoints are available? Which webhooks are available? Really cool thing about Jira, let me show you this actually, is within an app, if you go to project settings and you go to automation, you don't have to use automations that only Jira provides for you. You can actually create a rule that when a trigger happens, I'll just pick any trigger. We can add a component, then add an action where we actually send a web request. So we send a webhook based on any event. So we're not limited by settings of our tools. Instead, we can use webhooks and other things to kick off these workflows. That's really cool. I wanted to look at that real quick. But what are we actually going to build? All right, we're going to build these simple apps. Content comes to G Drive. It's a new file. We get the file and we upload it to Lokalise. And the first way we're going to build our original one is using a blueprint to help us save time on the simpler of the two workflows we're building together. We're going to go through every single step together. So I'll create a new scenario. And I'm going to import a blueprint, which I saved before the call. Oh, don't want you to look at my dirty room. There's my G Drive blueprint. I hit save. We have to now set up each module. So establish the connection and then fill out the other fields. So what this module is watching files in a folder, and it's not an ACID within make.com, which means it's not a webhook that sets itself up. Instead, this is one we can schedule for every 15 minutes. So we're going to watch files by created time. We have to choose the drive we're working with. So I'm going into my drive, and I'm watching the folder of make.com workflow and all file types. The limit is 99. Now I'm going to add a filter here. So file type is equal to docx or gdoc, Google Doc, right? So this is where I would do, let's go with the file, not ID, we need the file name. Launch files in a folder. Where might it be? File ID. All right. Let's actually see if it works. If I hit run this module, here's a bundle. So the file extension, docx, that's what we want. So that's how I can find a lot of information. File extension. It's not going to appear. What's up with that? Kind drive, file extension, docx. It's bizarre how it's not letting me filter for it so easily. ext. This is a lot of what it's like to work with these tools or to code. It's looking at the data and trying to figure out, how can I access it? What do I need to do to get that field? Well, I can't find it here, and I don't want to waste our time. This is where we can add a condition, for example, where the file extension, this isn't going to work, is equal to docx. This would have to correspond or be mapped to one of the fields within Google. But for time's sake, I don't want to spend our time looking at this list of yellow text. So let's go past it. When we do find a file, we're going to download it. So we're going to enter the file ID, getting it from the initial watch files in a folder. So here we have that file ID. And we have the option, if we're creating G Sheets or PowerPoints within Google, then we can convert those files to a downloadable file type, the Microsoft equivalent, really. And after we download that file, we'll upload it to Localize. So first, I need to get the project ID I'm working with. My favorite way to do it is within my project. You just look at the URL. We can get a lot of IDs from it. So here's a task ID. Here's a language ID. And my project ID will always be the first one after the word project in the slug. So I'll go back to make.com. This is it. I'll add that project ID there. I'm going to get the file from Google Drive, download a file. I'm hard coding the language because in my imaginary workflow and situation, my team's source language is always English. And then I have other parameters that are part of the Localize file upload that I can enable or disable, like tagging keys. I could tag them with, say, the file ID that comes from Google or any other data from a previous step. It doesn't have to be static. A lot of it can be dynamic. You choose to replace modified if it's a re-upload, and distinguish keys by file, and other parameters available by the Localize API. You can see them all in our Dev Hub. Now, for this workflow, I've added an error handler. So I can hit right-click on a module, and that's where you would add an error handler. I already have one, so I can't add another. And what this does is, if I actually find 5 new files within the folder and an error takes place during the run, the other bundles will be processed and the workflow will not stop immediately. I'll be notified by email that there was a failed run, but it won't impede that the other 4 files are uploaded. So I know that this workflow works. I could demonstrate it, but for time's sake, we're going to move on to building a much more complex workflow. We'll use webhooks now, and we'll work directly with Notion, which seems to be a popular tool amongst our user base. All right, so this is one of the blueprints I'm looking forward to sharing with you all. If I go back to my scenarios, I'll hit Save Changes. We're going to create a brand new scenario from scratch. I do need somewhat of a cheat sheet to get through this in a timely manner. So on my screen off to the right, I built this workflow out ahead of time, but I'm just going to use it for reference. So The workflow is, let's look back at our slides, think about it and diagram it. When a new task is created in Localize, after the initial team leverage is calculated, I want to trigger a webhook. That webhook should send data to Make, and with that data, I'm going to need to use it in the task ID included within the bundle to get the task in Localize. So the webhook will send me the webhook's data. Then I'm going to need to make an API called Localize to get the task. And I can look at my documentation and see exactly how I do that in case I need to make a custom call. Now, if we're doing a for each language dashboard, we'd have to create an array. Each language of that project will create an entry page. But I now see that I didn't update this slide before changing exactly what I was going to do. But maybe we will make, wait, no, this is for translation memory leverage. So we do have different team leverage for each language. So it still is true. So for each language then, we need to create a new database entry, or what Notion calls a page within my database. So it's got 4 steps. Webhook, get the task from the ID included in the webhook. Then for each language that's a part of that task, create a TM entry, leverage entry within my TM entry database. So let's see how we can do that. I hope I don't even use my reference page. So we'll start with the webhook. But before we do, look at all these apps you can connect with out of the box. It's so cool. If you're working with WordPress, Airtable, what else did we hear? We heard Slack, Microsoft Teams. There's a lot of options available. Let's do webhook. And I'm going to use a custom webhook. Yes. So let's create that webhook. We'll call this our TM leverage calculation dashboard. I'm not worried about typos. I'm worried about time today. So I'm going to copy that address to a clipboard. Now I need to go to my Localize project. Go to the app. So the Localize project that will trigger that webhook. I'm going to add a webhook. So I'm going to, I've already got a few, but I want to add another handler. I copy and paste the URL that Make gave me. I don't modify the header. I'm looking for just this event, initial TM leverage calculated, and I'm going to hit Save Changes. Okay, there's a status issue. Let's try again. Did I copy address to clipboard? Okay. That is bizarre. Let's try once more. Save changes. That might be one of our other webhooks. So I'm just going to close these because they're no longer relevant to what we're doing now. But actually, you know what's strange? Look at this URL. I think I may have chosen the wrong module. It's a mail hook. No, we don't want a mail hook. We want a webhook. Custom webhook. I got the wrong module. That's what happened. So we're going to add TM leverage. And errors is just a part of the process in any coding project. If you think on your first try, you're going to get it right. Oh man, there's another thing coming. So now I'll go into Localize. I'm going to update URL, hit Save Changes. App configuration saved and successfully determined. All right, so next we're going to, why don't we test the webhook first? So I'm going to hit run once. I'm going to go to my project. I'm going to upload a file. So I will upload anything. So this is just a random file I have in my downloads folder, and I'll hit import. TM leverage is calculated when tasks are created. So in order to test this webhook, next I need to go to all the files. I'll just go to tasks just to get the bundle structure. It's great we test this. We're going to call this webhook test. None of the advanced options are interesting to me right now, but I do want to filter for the file name. Directed study proposal and hit apply. So up to 48 matching keys. I feel like that's a good amount. Let's do it for Spanish and French because we want to have a different team leverage for each language. And if we just do Spanish, well, it won't be as cool. So we need 2 languages. All right, so we have webhook tests. The initial analysis is not yet done. 435 words to do. It shouldn't take long. Let's check here. So this will run instantly after the analysis is finished. And awkward silence makes me feel a little awkward, so I'm going to refresh the page and think of something interesting to say if I can. I don't think I can.
Eric, there is a question in the Q&A if you wanted to answer it while you're waiting.
Thank you for saving me, Brittany. What's the question?
The question is it possible to build a translation request portal for docs and PowerPoint files using Zapier? I have been trying to get it set up and I can't get it to work. I was told by Localized support that the Zapier integration does not support ad hoc document projects. Is this feature exclusive to make.com?
It's not that it's exclusive to make.com. It's a limitation of what was set up in Zapier. So what I really like about Blackbird and make.com is you can make any API request, even if the module does not already exist. And in Zapier, there's only 3 modules for interacting with Localize. It's like import a file, listen for task creations, and something else. So it's extremely limited. They can be used to accomplish simple but powerful workflows. But for the one you described, it's not going to work because Zapier does not support, according to my knowledge, custom API calls and custom webhook calls as well, whereas Blackbird and make.com do. So your desire, whoever did ask, absolutely factible, viable, but Zapier's own limitations will prevent you from accomplishing it. Make.com does have an extremely robust free trial. It's actually what I do all of mine on. Everything you're seeing today is on the free trial. So give it a look. It might seem more complex at the onset, but I find it to be much more powerful. So we've got our webhook. It's worked, and we now have a data bundle. So we can see the event is initial TM method calculated. We have the task ID, the task title, and I left the description entry. Now, what we're interested in now is mapping these keys and values to entries within Notion, right? So if I think about the diagram, we now need to get the task because there's missing data not included in the webhook that we might want. So let's choose localize get task. And here I'm using Make's built-in module for Localize. So I can map the project name, or if you're using a webhook you're listening to webhooks across multiple localized projects, and depending on the project, you send it or you give it a different field within Notion with a project name. So you have 5 localized projects, but just 1 Notion task database. You could do that by dynamically choosing the project name from the webhook payload. So let's just do that today as well. And I will choose the task ID. And like that, we can run this module. But for individual runs or testing, we actually have to input those dynamic values manually. So there's my project ID. Let me get the task ID. So if I go to open scope and project, I can yoink it right here. There's my task ID. Okay, let's see what this data returns and how we can use it. So this is the input, and the output is first the bundle, project ID, and it gives me all of the keys and values found in the task object. So if you're like, what can I actually learn about tasks? Go into our documentation, go to tasks, dun, 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 where the heck are you? When you're doing the webinar, you feel like everything is under a time crunch. Maybe I'm going too fast, I just don't know. Let me know in the chat, please. Retrieve a task. And look, we get an example response. So before you even open Zapier or make.com, you ask, can I do this? Well, when I access that object in Localize, which data entries or which keys and values can I modify it that are a part of that object? Just go to our documentation, control find, look through here, and you'll have the answer. And that's how you know exactly which object you need to get or to modify. Okay, so I saw all the data I get from getting the task. Now we need to handle each language differently because each language will have its own TM leverage. So with the task object, my workflow won't work unless I drill in for each array at the language level. So let's do that next. So add another module. It's going to be flow control. if you're using make.com, there's a couple things you need to know. There are some built-in modules that are extremely useful. There's the tools module for transformers, creating JSON, creating string values, transforming data. There's flow control. And then there's error handlers. So within, actually here they are right here. Set multiple variables, get multiple variables, match patterns, so regex expressions. I use them all the time in my other workflows. I'm gonna go with flow control. And I'm gonna iterate. So what this will do is it will receive an array, and then it will, for each array, run the next steps of the workflow, which lets us then use the data from each array within its own part of the workflow. And our array is the languages array. So I can't test this unless I add a final module, and that is Notion. So I'm going to go to my Notion module, and I am going to, this is where I'm going to cheat. I'm going to look and see which module I used in the past. I used create a database item. All right, create a database item. Now I'm going to search for my database. It's task, it's a translation memory. If I search for, this is how you do it. Gotta hit search for first translation memory. No matches. Well, I have Notion here. That's because I wrote TM leverage, not translation memory. So a very easy syntax error, one that you will make, one that I make every day when using these tools. So let's try again. TM leverage. Sometimes it's the simplest errors that cause the biggest headaches. I hit OK. And I go back to it. So now I want to load the fields from this database. So we've got task name, task ID, language. And if I were to add fields here, well, they would then appear within my make module. And now it's just a process of clicking between your modules and the data returned to fill in these fields. So my task name, I get that from my get a task, webhook test. This is 0% match. So I'm actually going to go to TM leverage values. I'm going to skip this one. I'm going to go with 0%, 50%, 75, 85, 95, 100. Task ID comes from the get a task. Here I can add tags. Notion had this field when I created the database. I was too lazy to delete it. So that's why the tags is there. But then I can go to languages, and language ISO will come from the iterator, just like TM leverage did. So I'll choose the language ISO. I think there's even language name, but I don't see it here. So I'll just choose language ISO for our demo. To make and see if this will work, we need to set the webhook to run, and we need to create a new task in our Localized project. So let's filter for, I just find a new file that's not, let's do translation example, clear all, select all. I don't think, oh, that file, I deleted it from my project. But not, there it is, and all of a sudden it appears. Okay, now I'm just running into the demo gods today. They're not happy with me. Translation for live, full workflow test. There's a beautiful description because within my dashboard, we might have a description field. Okay, for French and Spanish, perfect. I create a task. So while we're waiting for this analysis to run on our last workflow for today, so what happened? Invalid API token. That is bizarre because that is not true. Please check if you entered the API token correctly. This is what I'm going to do. Sometimes there are bugs within make. So I'm going to hit save. I'm going to go back. Sometimes taking a break from an activity like this is the best way because it just fixes itself. Instead of mapping the project name, maybe it's not this that's wrong. Maybe I'm required, because I have in my example to the right, I actually chose it from a list. So I'm going to go make.com. Oh, there's a reminder for a customer call coming up. Sorry, customer call reminder. I'll get to you later. There we go. So it didn't work. Oh, I got to recreate a task. You got to be kidding me. That's too bad. Let's do it one more time. So I'm going to delete this task and just recreate it. New task. ASDF, ASDF, English, French, and Spanish. I don't want all of the content because then it might take too long to get the task analysis, which I don't want. I want this to be the timely. So that was translation example that IDML had applied. 14 matching keys, create the task. My buddy Bubbles from Trailer Park Boys is my assignee for Spanish, so you know it's going to get done on time. We're interested in that TM leverage. All right, so we got the task, iterated for each language, and here you can see it happen. So one bundle came into the iterator, and two bundles came out, one for each language. And then these bundles moved to the next step, which was Notion, and the content worked. So back in TM leverage, we have my most recent tasks. These two, we can see the task IDs are different. I use task name ASDF quite often for my testing, so that's not a surprise. And we have that for Spanish. I have a lot of TM leverage, but for French, it must be our first time. We have just 260 at 0%. So at this part, I wish I could show you something cool, like an awesome chart, but I'm on the free Notion plan, so I'm facing some limitations that prevent me from doing so. But team, everyone that stuck around, isn't it so cool what can be done if you play around with the tool just a little bit, diagram, draw out your ideas, and work through the error step by step. You get closer and closer to automating a task that might be the bane of your existence, something you really don't like doing. I used to have, I'm out of time, I can't tell that story today, but when I was a translation project manager, the amount of boring tasks I had to do just blew my mind. That's it. This is what I have for you today as far as building out a workflows. I don't think we'll have time to get to Matthias' Blackbird video that he had prepared for us, but we're going to include it in the email follow-up because it is about 6 minutes long. We won't answer any questions. And I'm going to leave this screen up while we answer your questions. It's my final advice. I wanted to talk through it. For using these tools, expect to run into problems, errors, and headaches, but some creative thinking, a lot of ChatGPT, a lot of Google. The answer is out there. Someone's done it before. They want to help other people. So you can email me anytime, talk with our customer success team if you're a Localized user and can get in touch with them, chat with our support team, or maybe even the support team at Jira and these other tools that you're looking to automate with. There's always a way to do it. Start small until you can build your dream workflow. So everyone, thank you so much for your time and joining me today on a topic I'm very passionate about. I'm going to continue sharing my screen, and then Brittany and Michaela, do we have any interesting questions, Q&A we can answer and get to?
We do have. So, Eric, could you please give us an example of a team or work structure where you would recommend using this workflow with Make.com? I would assume it's most suitable for larger use cases.
You know, it's so hard. I'm sorry, I was distracted by the chat. Could you repeat the first part of the question?
Yeah.
What caught me was large volume and different use cases. And so I need to hear it again.
Yeah. Could you please give us an example of a team or work structure where you would where you would recommend using this workflow with Make.com?
Difficult to answer because there's some ambiguity in the question. Which workflow will any workflow? And everyone's team is different. The suggestion I would provide is if you have a team in repetitive workflows, get together and brainstorm. What would you like to automate? What's a low-hanging fruit you could work on? The reason why I showed the Notion task dashboard is because I had a call with one of our customers, and what they wanted was a dashboard for language progress of all of their tasks in a centralized place. And I know that we have other customers doing it, working with Blackbird and working with their own code as well. So I know others are doing it. I knew it had been done. I built it out for the customer. We got on a call and I showed them what was possible. And I shared the blueprint with them so they could get started immediately in building their own Notion task dashboard. So difficult to give a definitive answer. Meet with your team, talk about what opportunities exist, and do some research. Are there webhooks and API endpoints that can make my workflow come to life? The answer is yes. Try your hand at it. Why not?
Cool. Thanks, Eric. The next one, are Adobe files, for example, AI, IDML, INDD supported? And does it also support Arabic?
Now, this is a Localized specific question. Localized can support any language, but file types is more limited. Our document type projects. So we support a whole suite of software localization file types, but since the question was related to documents, we support docx, PPTX, HTML, IDML. We do not support PDFs. I think I answered every part of the question.
Yeah, thanks. The next one. Is it possible to have some human intervention on an automated workflow? For example, when someone submits a translation request in Jira with the doc file attached that is not clean. So, for example, it's not ready to be translated because of issues, comment, etc.
So, anonymous attendee, you got to do some desktop publishing before you can upload to Localize and start the process. Absolutely. What I would suggest doing, the easiest fix is within your Jira board, you have a different step for DTP where after content's uploaded, it moves to DTP. And that can be done without even using make.com and only after you go from the DTP column to the next step, which includes uploading to Localize. Then you kick off your workflow builder. The other, I guess the bigger point of getting to is you can have multiple workflows that have a stopping point. So workflow 1 ends at sending the file to DTP, and workflow 2 starts when that file from DTP is dragged, or the issue for DTP is dragged to the next step. So using 2 separate workflows is the best way to include a gatekeeping or human intervention step between the 2.
Thanks.
And that's just my information related to how I use make.com and Zapier. Blackbird may have some sort of human intervention step. I'm not entirely sure because of their specialized nature in localization and language ops. You can check out their documentation, Make's documentation, just going to developers.blackbirdio.com or maybe just blackbird.com, and all of the lot of good stuff there.
Thanks, Eric. Last 3, actually 2 minutes. Everyone, do you have any final questions for Eric?
With these 2 minutes, I may want to add a plug because we're talking about automating workflows on Localize. And one capability I'm super excited about, it's coming out, including in demos with current customers and prospective ones, is our automated workflow builder for the automated task creation. So everything I just did to automated task creation might be in vain in just a month or by the end of this quarter, because we're creating an automated workflow builder that will get your keys if they fit a certain scope, and then assign a task to your pre-selected assignees. So you don't have to use make.com or Zapier to create automated task assignments. One other question I saw in the chat was, or maybe it was during the call, was what about connecting to and automating in and out between repositories, GitHub, GitLab, Azure repos? Now, these workflow builders, I don't think they can accomplish that. Where you can do it, and what we've recently done, an initiative I was part of, very proud to share with you, is if you're a dev or you're using the GitHub app, but it's just not meeting all of your automation needs, check out our GitHub Actions. We've just published them, and the code can be repurposed for use with GitLab or Azure pipelines or Bitbucket pipelines. So it's a new way to automate between the 2 tools. So I'm all about automating, whether you're using GitHub Actions or API, make.com, Zapier, Blackbird.io. There's always a way to do it somehow. So if you need to improve automations in your repository and your TMS, look into our documentation on GitHub Actions. Dev, there it is, that's the slug. And check out Blackbird's makes and our documentation to investigate automation opportunities. Thank you everyone for joining us today. It's really fun.
Thank you so much. Eric, actually, if you have 30 seconds extra, what about out-of-the-box integration workflows that can be done from Jira to Localize, example, without Zapier?
Yep, so there are some options from, out of the box from Jira to Localize. there isn't. There is an out of the box from Localize to Jira for creating tickets when certain events take place in Localize. Those events correspond to the webhooks that we were talking about. And they are like when you create a task, create a Jira issue. But from Jira to Localize, we don't have anything available out of the box.
Okay, and we are right on time. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Brittany. We will get in touch with you with the recording and the related documentation. Thank you so much. Stay tuned for more in the upcoming weeks. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone. Great to see you all.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.